Good afternoon, Sean here, Mountains Garage. My most popular videos, the majority of my questions, surround the Turbo 400 transmission. So my idea for this video, I had a job to do where I'm building a Transbrake Turbo 400 for a customer. As you know, hopefully, if you don't, I have videos breaking down each segment of the transmission. They're not very good videos. I'm not an actor. I don't have a production company, but I try to do my best while working. So this time I decided, why not just highlight the job start to finish? My intent was to do it in one video. I've pretty much just turned the corner where I have the transmission stripped, a few pieces modified, everything cleaned and painted. And the length of the video is probably at the point where people lose their attention span. Combined with the fact that I ordered a Transbrake the day the gentleman dropped off the transmission, and like all things in this country, it's moving at a turtle's pace. It's probably strapped to a turtle's back, for all I know, and they don't move that fast. It's gonna be here next week. I should be able to do the second part of this video next week, but so far, this is what we got. Good morning. I'm a few days late from starting on this project, but I'm still waiting for the Transbrake valve body. This is going to be a Turbo 400 for a customer. He's going to have 700 horsepower or less. So because I'm a little late starting, I just threw up a white table like I normally do. I'll put most of the new parts over here that I'm working on. Any used stuff will go on the cardboard. Most of the oily internals will sit on that stainless tray there. That's my parts bucket for the nuts and bolts. Let's strip it apart. Initial impressions is I've seen worse. There's some metal on the magnet. I'm impressed it has a magnet. The fact that it has a magnet, O-ringed pump bolts. I looked at the date code, it's an 88. I'm hoping it doesn't have the extra check ball, but I don't think it'll be an issue if it does. But it's relatively clean. I'm looking at the aluminum and stuff. Let's keep ripping. I have videos of me stripping one piece by piece. I'm not sure the actual theme of this particular video, just an overview of the whole job, I guess. So I don't do time lapse. I think they're a waste of time, mine and yours. So I'm just going to highlight you along the way. A fun fact, every time I see something I should film, I have to go turn the radio down so I don't get in trouble. Copyright stuff and whatnot. See what I mean about the aluminum? This thing is wicked clean. 2 O-rings. Maybe I've worked on this before. So far the pump is nice. The forward clutch has aluminum piston, so does the direct. I can see that already. So that's awesome. I'm not sure the camera does it justice, but the aluminum is so clean. But when I get the direct clutch out of there, I grab it like this. When I reinstall it, I don't have the clutches in it, so I can grab this with my hand. There's just no natural way for your hand to get in there. You can kind of get your fingers on that, but I just give it a hook and pull it up. The direct clutch is smoked, and we won't be reusing the drum because we need a 34 element sprag, but I will rob the aluminum piston out of it. The engine braking band is also smoked. That's pretty rare. At some point the governor cover got a dent in it. The poor little governor was rubbing on it, but it was still working. Also happy to see the aluminum piston in the center support. I got my lifting tool on it. Let's finish stripping it. Nothing out of the ordinary here. It has helical cut gears. The band apply surface is fine. We'll just service the center support and go through the rest of it, make sure it looks good. Machine off the O-ring groove for the slip yoke. Normal stuff. Down inside the case, the ears of the spacer The back of the case is starting to wear into the case. But no worry, we're going to put a roller bearing on the output thrust anyway. This is a normal 6 check ball Turbo 400 case, like 65 to 87. This is where the 7th check ball area would be. It would look like this. This is not the case we're working on. The case we're working on today is a 1988, and it has a spot for it. It didn't have it installed, but it's definitely there. You should double check with whoever makes the valve body. I know, for instance, a lot of the shift kits say you can't put it in an 88 and up style, but I believe my Transbrake valve body is not one of those, and I'll be able to use this case. I have no doubt whatsoever. There's also a orifice cut plug restrictor right there. You can either remove it, or it says to bore it out to at least 1/8 inch. Whatever's easier. We're all stripped out. I pulled the linkage apart, pulled the linkage seal out of the case. I'll put it on the bench and scrape all the nooks and crannies. It's easier to do it now than it is to have to clean the parts washer. So I put it in as clean as possible. After I wash it about an hour, I'll take it back out on the bench and I'll trim the ears off. I'll drill and tap the vent hole, 1/8 pipe. And then I'll put it in and wash it one more time. Behold the glorious life of a transmission rebuilder. Half done. Output shaft in the lathe. On the spline side of the O-ring, it's really hard. I usually grind the outside a little bit. I hold the hand grinder in there. And if you're grinding on the ways, be sure to clean up the grinding material before you slide anything back and forth. But I just take the edge off, and then I'll take the worst carbide bit that I have, and I'll bring this side. This step is already here after the splines, so I even the O-ring groove on this side down to that level, and then I work this side down till they're all the same. I go in about, well, 3/8 of an inch. On the other side of the O-ring, and that should be just fine. The vent is drilled at 21/64 and tapped 1/8 inch pipe. Note the angle. It's really comfortable for you to cord this drill, and the collet that holds the tap, it does two things. It allows you to easily install the fitting, and two, it teardrops the hole toward the center and it exactly matches the gasket. Over here is the original hole. We'd be getting bigger toward the sealing surface, and we don't want to do that. So in this case, this matches the gasket perfectly. That's the end of day one. I had about 40 minutes this morning shooting the video and stripping the transmission. And about 4.5 hours this afternoon cleaning, starting to modify, in this case, painting parts. So at least tomorrow we can start reassembling. Unless the paint goes drastically bad overnight. That's only ever happened once. I went with satin black, so shouldn't be an issue. Before I painted, I did cut the ears off. You saw me tap the hole, and I cleaned up all the gasket surfaces and stoned the valve body area with my sharpening stone to make sure it's perfectly flat, or as flat as I can get it. This dummy pan sits with all my hole plugs that I use for painting, so it's a quick setup. I got a piece of cardboard all cut for the pump. I got one that bolts on the back for the tail housing. So it's a quick setup to paint. If it was just a stock rebuild, you could paint it when it was all put together, but I like the detail of all the brand new bolts that I use against the fresh paint. It looks nice. Good morning. It's the next day, early. I'm almost to the point where I can say that I've turned the corner and I feel like I'm assembling instead of disassembling. But this morning I got to dedicate a few more hours to making stuff pretty, getting stuff clean. So the case is pretty much ready to go. I've sorted through the bolt bucket. This is what I'm going to use. And there's a substantial amount that I'm not. I'm still got to clean up and paint a few more items. I have the front pump cover painted, and that's drying, so I can assemble the pump after I do a couple mods. The tail housing's prepped and painted. That's just a hunk of aluminum I set over any open hole I don't want to paint. And I'll be using the stock pan. I'm going to reuse the magnet that was in it. I'll clean it off, and I'm going to add a drain plug. I put it back here out of convenience. If I put it down here, it's just in the way. On this level, you get almost all your oil, enough so you can handle the transmission without spewing oil everywhere. And typically, you're going to drain it and pull the pan, or drain it and do something anyway. It's not just a drain and refill. And even if it was, you never get all the oil out of a transmission, no matter how hard you try. So it's nothing but a 1/2 inch bolt short. I buy nuts that don't have any coating on them so I can weld that inside. A simple nylon washer. I take this area here, it's not exactly flat. I just hammer it on a bolt. Not high tech, but it works really well. Nothing wrong with the stock pan. I also take the pan rail and set it on the edge of the bench and just gently make sure all the holes are flat. From years of over tightening, sometimes they're up. You just got to push them back flat with a light hammer action. Good as new. Drain plug all welded in. In reality, I only need to tack the nut. Instead, I weld it like it has to hold back steam. Alright, so it looks like we've at least turned the corner. And we get to do the fun stuff, assembly. The majority of every job is the cleaning and painting. It's not the disassembly and assembly. It's all the details. And that's also the difference between a good job and a bad job. When I called to check on the Transbrake valve body, I ordered the second one. They hadn't shipped the first one yet. Maybe it'll be an incentive for them to move the package along. And 2, I'm going to build one to sell. I have been meaning to do that all along. The money isn't always available because it's a pretty good investment to buy all the parts, to assemble one, to just have it without a purpose. But it'll sell. All the other ones have sold. Look, I sold 6 before I bolted one into my 72 Nova. I built 7 transmissions for that car, so, you know, it'll sell. It's a good time of year. We'll see. So I have a second part of this video coming up next week when the Transbrake valve body shows up. And then when I build the one to sell, maybe I'll change the format up. Maybe I'll hit other details. Like I said, this is all broken down in other videos already. But if I can explain it different or show it different or a different view, maybe it helps to get the point across. We'll see. So like, share, subscribe. Check out the other videos. If you got any questions, I'm always available. I get lots of questions anyway that I answer nightly. I do the best I can anyway, so I'm still small. You know, my subscribers are pushing 1,500, which is great. Took over a year to get 1,000. Now in a couple months, I'm halfway there to doubling it. Woohoo! So keep on keeping on, and that's how it works. I'll catch you later.